guys, how are you? I hope you have been enjoying the recent Black History Month videos. I especially loved reading all the feedbacks about colorism. That was really fun. I was asked by some people to talk about Ama Asante's upcoming movie, Where Hands Touch, which is a story about a biracial black girl who grows up in Nazi Germany and falls in love with a Hitler Youth soldier who doesn't really agree with the ideology but was forced to enroll. And there have been a lot of controversy about the movie, about what it means to have this sort of empathetic and humanization of Hitler Youth in cinema now, when neo-Nazism is on such a rise, the alternative right is being brought to the forefront of American politics, and just with the very complex racial climate, is it appropriate or essential to tell this kind of story with romance? And I think that's really my sort of conflict about this, because Ama Asante released a statement which I will link down below, but essentially she wanted to talk about the Rhineland Bastards and the issues of children of color who are growing up in Germany. And her intentions were not to sort of humanize the Nazis or to downplay their violence, but to tell this story of this biracial girl. And Amandla Steinberg, who is playing the young woman, has also released a statement on her Tumblr about it, talking about how she's putting in work, trying to tell the story. Again, I will link to that statement down below. And for me, I am not going to say that I think that this movie is inherently bad for doing this. Ama Asante did the movie Belle, which was excellent and did have interracial relationships in it, and I think that she is very understanding of the complexities of interracial love, because interracial relationships are political, whether or not they mean to be, or it doesn't matter if the people are in love or whatever, or why they choose to be in it. They are political because race is political, and that nuance is important to have in any story with an interracial couple. Most do not take the time to have this dialogue, and that's neither here nor there, but it is expected when you have someone of Asante's background and intelligence to have that. So I do believe she is coming forward with this idea in an intellectual, empathetic way. However, I do think there is this persistent problem of always wanting to have these romances between oppressors and the people they oppress, but oh, he doesn't really believe what he does. I mean, you see this all the time when you look at old tragic mulatto stories. There's always a story about this guy who doesn't really believe in the inherent inferiority of black people, but he still has slaves, and he'll take a wife who's a passing mixed race person and will, endow her with all of the accoutrement of seeming like a wife, while knowing that because where they live, they will never really have a future. If he dies, then everything will be set into disarray. This happens and is the main point of Frances Harper Iola Leroy. Frances Harper's Iola Leroy, because in the story you have the female lead Iola Leroy, who spends her whole life believing that she is a white daughter of a southern plantation owner. She even defends slavery because she sees her parents as good slave owners and how they take care of their slaves, and therefore they are good. And it's not until her father dies and her entire parenthood and identity is thrown into a skew, because it doesn't matter that her father was white. It doesn't matter that she barely looks black. The fact of the matter is that her mother was a mixed race person, therefore she is a slave now. And that is a reality that man knew when he married the mother. He knew that by staying in the South, by pretending living this false life, that even though he loved his children, he loved his wife, he was not endowing them with security. He was not endowing them with the knowledge to survive in this world. And you see this all the time in romantic novels, but there's always this storyline of people who are aroused or in love with the people that they're supposed to hate, but love them in spite of it. It is a cliche, And I think in this situation, with everything that's been going on in anti-Semitism, it's something that people are even more apprehensive of. And I also think, and I think this was the big turning point for me, is that there is a way to tell this story without romance, because it's been done. This is the book Destined to Witness by Hans J. Massaquoi. He was, I believe he's still alive, but he is or was the son of a prominent African from an African royal family and a German nurse, and he grew up during the rise of the Third Reich. And this memoir is about his life growing up in working class Germany during the rise of the Third Reich, during the fall of it, and sort of his immigration from Germany post World War II into Europe and into America eventually. And he talks about a lot of the issues growing up as a black man. He talks about the Rhineland Bastards, and this was reading this book was the first time I'd ever heard of it, and I believe I have the posted here, where they talk about, Hitler speaking in Mein Kampf about how the Negro blood has infected the Rhine, and how France is secretly because a lot of black soldiers came in during World War I fighting in France, and so there was a population of soldiers who came in from France, and black soldiers came in from France, and they slept with these white women, and they produced these children, and they wanted to basically euthanize them to ensure that they could never reproduce and just cut out at the bone. And it was I would read it and I was so shocked because I had never heard of it before. But what this memoir does is it tells the story beautifully, cohesively, and it also spotlights the working German class who were apathetic at most towards a lot of Hitler and the Nazi policies, but didn't really have a say in what happened, were not in control of it, but really just wanted to see, in their eyes, Germany come out of this very dire situation that it was in. And I think what Hans does a really great job of doing is showing their reality without feeling the need to put moral labels on it. It's very out there clear. You can see the people who embrace these racist dogmas, the people who don't, and it's just a way of their life. And there's no deep romance between him and some, SS Nazi youth girl, but, he does have a relationship with white women throughout the novel because, it's Germany, there's more of them than there are of him. But it's about his identity as a black man and learning what that means and trying to form it in a very complicated, changing world. My favorite parts of this memoir is when he is there viewing the Olympics and he's seeing, and he's watching black athletes perform, and he's finally seeing something positive in black with him and how that attaches to him. And so for me, my biggest criticism about the movie is that there was a way to tell this story without romance, without you needing to put the SS and Hitler youth right at the forefront of telling this story about romance. You could have done it with a working class German family. You could have done it with, white Jewish family. You could have done this in so many different ways, but choosing Hitler youth, whether or not he's a rebel or not, is a political decision, and you're choosing that to try to humanize and realize that, not everyone in Hitler youth believed in those practices. Yes, but they were upholding them just by putting on that uniform. This book, this memoir, does everything that Asante says she wants to do in that statement. It tells the story of people of color growing up in Nazi Germany. It tells about their reality. I do appreciate that she wants to do it from a biracial woman's perspective, and I think that you could have taken a lot of what was in here and transplanted it onto Amandla Steinberg's character. But again, you don't need this, and I mean, quite frankly, cliche relationship between, a Nazi and a biracial black person. I just think that it is a cliche, and it unfortunately overwhelms the maybe excellent aspects of this movie, because this is going to be the thing that everyone's going to walk into it thinking about, is how she portrays this Hitler youth, instead of talking about the reality of what it is to be a person of color growing up in Nazi Germany, which is a story that needs to be told and should be told and has deep, deep relevance today. But yet, we're not talking about that. We're talking about why she chose to have a Nazi as the love interest. And like I said, when you're talking about interracial relationships, everything's political. So I just feel like that choice, while well-meaning, was probably not the best one. And I think that this book, I would recommend it to anyone who really wants to hear about the story of what it would be like growing up as a person of color during the Third Reich, to really check it out. I will link to it below in the description box. And I think, check it out. I think it's an excellent read. It's so quick, even though it's a little bit under 500 pages. I think it's just 440-ish. Yeah, just under 450. And I think that you will get a lot out of it, especially with the story that you're interested in. And as for Where Hands Touch, I hope that the faith that I have in her will be founded, but with all of her stories of the recent 3, Belle, I think the other one's A United Kingdom, and this one, I do hope that she doesn't just feel like the only stories she can tell about black relationships and black love are necessarily interracial ones. And that's because I feel like while that is important and impactful, I write those myself, I do think that there has to be a place to tell black stories that isn't just about mixed race black people. I think that we have to remember that the spectrum of blackness, if we, like I said before in the colorism video, if we always make it light-skinned people, we are leaving out a very important group and an important part of blackness in telling those stories. And I hope moving forward we can keep those in mind as we put out projects. If we're going to tell these interracial stories, are we putting dark-skinned people in these stories? Or is it always going to be the mixed race person who looks exceptionally light or exceptionally curly hair, who is, considered beautiful by all spectrums, and not someone who can be singularly African in her beauty and have that be appreciated in the same way that biracial, ambiguous beauty is? Which isn't a knock on Amandla. She's doing great work, and I definitely respect her hustle and what she's got to do. But I also just feel like these are things that we have to talk about. Walking the walk is not just putting out products, but also understanding these colorism complexities and where you play into it. Because it's, as I said before, it's sometimes hard for lighter-skinned mixed race people to accept that. But sometimes you are also playing into stereotypes without meaning to, because you have privileges. But anyway, that's that. Again, I'm wearing another Adorned by Chi shirt, Foxy and brown. I forgot to link to the shirt in the last video, but I am going to fix that. I put the link up now on that video, and the link for this shirt will be in this video down below if you're interested. I love her shirts. They are so cute. The next video coming up will be my video on black feminism, and then, of course, my new Riverdale review, because, oh my god, Betty Cooper, am I right?